All right. We are live. Welcome to the Event Icon Show. We have got some amazing guests this week. I'm super excited. Handpicked the best of the best. So we appreciate you. If you're here live, awesome. If you're on the road listening to this or watching it later, we really appreciate you being a part of this. So what's the Event Icon Show? It's a weekly show we do on Wednesdays. Myself, Sean Holiday, I'm one of the co-founders of CrowdMics. Will Curran, who's the CEO of, wow, I can't even think of your company right now. Entertain, yeah. I literally can't think of it. Will, wow.
Endless, no.
Endless Entertainment.
Yeah.
Love you, Will. And then we've got Laura Lopez with Social Table. She's the community manager. So we kind of co-host it today. I'm the host. Hopefully I won't forget as much as I already have. We really just interview and give you guys the opportunity to pick the brains of the top people in the event industry. And this week is going to be focused on sponsorship. We've got a couple different perspectives, from technology to direct outreach to sponsors to management and control. So if you're on live, you can go ahead and use the question feature to throw your questions in. And then we'd love if you're on social media to go ahead and share it, hashtag event icons, and enjoy the show more than anything. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Let's go from left to right. So we've got Courtney Bash Tangway. Got it. So a little bit about Courtney. She works with Marketing Profs. Courtney has 10 years of experience in the event industry. She's worked on conferences, trade shows, small corporate networking events for various organizations. She's currently the sponsorship and event liaison at Marketing Profs, an online resource for marketing professionals. She is the product manager for the virtual conferences and manages sponsorship at the company's flagship events, B2B Marketing Forum. I highly suggest. It's a really good event. Ann Hadley puts out some awesome content. Prior to that, she was a marketing communication manager at Eastman Kodak. Courtney resides in Connecticut, where she's at today, with her husband and 3 children. I got you one up. I've got 4, so you can imagine.
I'll let you hold that title.
5-year-old, yeah, 5-year-old, 3-year-old, and then 2 1-year-olds.
Wow.
So crazy house. And then a fun fact, Courtney spent her summers going to Bermuda as a child. That is really cool. Something she didn't fully appreciate until now. Now you're like, man.
I know.
Welcome to the show, Courtney.
Thank you.
We appreciate having you on. So our next guest is Meg Facey of, is it Phase Forward? Is that the best way to pronounce it?
It's Phase Forward.
Awesome. So Meg has worked for or with some of the biggest brands you know. Her career spans several markets, including hotels, CVB, Industries Association, event technology, and strategic partnerships. I saw PSAV on there,
Yes.
which is cool, where she's been both a buyer and a seller. Meg is best known for motivating sales and marketing teams, driving strategy, and connecting people. She started Phase Forward, a sponsorship management company, because she knew she needed to elevate the conversation between organizers and brand partners. And then a fun fact is Meg is an international gold medal winning dragon boat paddler.
I should have had my medal ready.
That is so cool. Really. I love it. Thanks for being on the show, Meg.
Thank you.
Peter is up next. I'm just going to call you Peter, and I'll let you pronounce your name.
Perfectly all right.
Peter
Peter Pullen. So unpronounceable, but Peter Pullen.
Pullen. There we go. So he is, Peter's the organizer of, he's the owner, sponsor of my events. Peter organized architectural light shows at the age of 20. His first contact with sponsorship. He owned his first company by 25, a web development and video production. That's awesome. He has a fascination for events and sponsorships, which led him to the creation of SponsorMyEvent.com in 2014. Today, sponsorship is a passion, especially the transition of a passive sponsorship to an interactive sponsorship that uses new event tech. A fun fact is Peter is totally boring, but just crazy enough to create startups and disrupt the market, and he's notoriously stubborn. I love it. That was a good intro. Thanks for being on the show, Peter. And then we have got our last guest waiting patiently is Jackie Duame. Is that the best way to pronounce it, Jackie?
It's actually Jackie Duhame, but close enough. So
I tried to go for like a little subtlety into something, but
I know I usually get Jacques Duhame. I answer to that all the time. So, but it's Jackie Duhame.
I'll call you Jack today. So Jackie has more than 25 years in events. This is part of the hand-picked team today. Festival sponsorships and marketing. She's an Arizona State University graduate and a graduate of Scottsdale Leadership class. I don't know Roman numerals very well, so one of those. Which one?
18.
18. Okay. So she's the past president of Arizona's Festival and Events. She's a current committee member of AZMPI and the board member of, I always say it wrong, ILEA?
Yeah, it's ILEA, so International Live Events Association. That's the new name. Thank God they changed it from ISIS.
Yeah. We just talked about it last week, but somebody on the chat kept calling in saying, you're pronouncing it wrong. And then she's the third generation native of Phoenix and Scottsdale, which I'm also in Arizona, so I love that fact. And then a fun fact is Jackie helped drive supplies in a large truck on a moment's notice to Fort Smith to assist Hurricane Katrina. That is super cool. Like, how big of a truck are we talking? Are we talking like a...
It was a big box truck, and it also had a big grill on the back of it, but by the time all the crews lined up, there was 19 trucks, most of which were huge semis with kitchens and refrigerators and stuff like that. So I didn't get to go into Katrina because, I wasn't vaccinated, because you had to get vaccinated very quickly, and also they started holding up the trucks, so they only sent their real staff in there. So.
Wow, that is cool, though. And I appreciate you giving back. That's really awesome. So just another random thing that just came to mind. Let me see if he probably sent something. Is that because we had to change why you guys had a difficulty coming in today into the show, as Will had to change the domain. So those that are trying to get on right now actually are at the wrong domain. So he's trying to get out and tell the world to go to the right GoToWebinar, but the license had expired this morning and switched the user account number. So we probably will not have anybody on today, but this will be recorded and posted back out, which is okay, which is good. We'll make sure to share it and get it with everybody. So the first question, and Meg, we'll kind of start with you, just in the middle.
Sure.
What got you into the event industry? Where did you just start, in this industry?
Yeah, I started in the hotel business. I was with Hyatt Hotels for almost 10 years, worked in DC, LA, San Francisco, continued with the hotels for a little bit longer, then went into the CVB world, then took a jump over to Las Vegas and worked at Mandalay Bay and opened up the convention center in the hotel. Went into event technology from there. You recognized PSAB. You might recognize IBON, which was a older internet company. And then I worked for MPI as staff. I was vice president of sales, so industry. And along the way, I was always buyer and seller of sponsorship, and that's the kind of tie between all those organizations. And then most recently, I was vice president of sales at Bellagio, and just started my own company, Sponsorship Management, Phase Forward, just a couple months ago.
And moved from Vegas, right?
I moved back home to Philadelphia from Vegas. And, the DNC is only a couple blocks away going on right now, so that's exciting. It's a good time to be in the city.
That is awesome. I appreciate it. Courtney, what got you in? I know you mentioned 10 years in your kind of profile, but what brought you into the event industry?
Well, I started, actually, one of my early jobs was as a trade show coordinator for a publishing company. So I kind of came in account managing, client relations for sponsors, and then kind of just rolled into different event-related roles from there. So working for different companies and either managing the event itself and our event presence if we were a sponsor, or managing the sponsorship piece within different organizations. So it's kind of stuck with me from one of my early jobs up till now. So
you did both. So I see, like at Penton, you were doing the actual kind of coordination and this goes here, this goes there, and then you started to move more in corporate side, finding the best marketing tool, because events are one of the best marketing tools you have to really dive in and start to do the outreach. That's awesome. We're going to go to Jackie. Peter, you're going to be last, ladies first.
Absolutely,
Jackie,
I totally agree with you.
Yeah. What got you into the industry?
I was very fortunate. When I was just out of high school and college, I started working for the City of Scottsdale Parks and Rec, and we had to do some outdoor festival stuff. It was really kind of above my level where I was at the time, but I had a great boss who kind of saw that I liked to organize these kind of stuff. So I started doing, some events with the city. At that point in time, they didn't have, degreed programs and events and festivals and that kind of. I'm dating myself right now. So what ended up happening was that was kind of the part that I really, really liked, and I just kind of stuck with it. I did it for nonprofits. I've done anything from, black ties and fundraisers all the way up to, driving the talent around to stage managing, and then also no matter what I do, whatever career I'm in, even if it was sales for rental, I also negotiated all the deals for the partnerships and the sponsorship, which is what I really enjoy. So I recently also started a sponsorship marketing agency. So I've got kind of both sides where I'm selling and also trying to find my way in this kind of new place, even though I have many, many years of experience. It's one of those things, you're always starting over with sponsorships. You always have to be cutting edge. You always have to be writing the new proposals and making sure that you're not just doing the same old, same old. So I'm very excited to be here, and I'm also very excited that I finally get to do the one part of the events other than the coordination that I really like.
And now you guys can add being on the Event Icon show to,
That's
should
right.
be like your next LinkedIn profile. I was on the show. So that's awesome. I appreciate the kind of insight. And it gives some ideas of where we can go with the discussion. Peter, we're kind of the same cloth, man. We're torn on the same cloth. Tell me your, several startups.
Well, yeah, indeed, startups. I think I have been an entrepreneur since the age of probably 15 or so when I was selling the first designs or whatever I did, business cards when I was in school back then. Then when I was 20, I started to do architectural light shows, which was something which was absolutely tremendous, something that most people didn't do at this time. And that was also, by the way, the first contact I've ever had with sponsorship, because all of a sudden we realized that we needed money to make these shows happen. And so I tried to shop around, find some sponsors. Never had heard anything how to make a sponsorship pitch or whatever. But I think I made it quite well, because I managed to get the money that we needed to make these sponsorships or these shows a success, really. And then it was a little bit on and off. So I became an entrepreneur. I was 25. I created my first company, as you mentioned, and I became from sponsorship seeker to sponsorship giver. So I was sponsoring certain things. I must honestly say the success of this was absolutely not there. So I was sponsoring and didn't bring any return. So probably as a sponsor, I made everything wrong what you could do wrong. And then finally in 2011, 2012, I created another project, which was basically a matchmaking platform for speed dating for business events. And that was a contact where we, or the project where we got, was my co-founder, where we got really in touch with event organizers who were looking for sponsors, and we discovered really this problem for event organizers, how to find the right sponsors, and sponsors how to find the right event organizers, which led then, of course, to become a real passion and the creation of SponsorMyEvent.com, which is a marketplace that brings together event organizers and sponsors. And so what today I'm doing is, of course, running SponsorMyEvent.com, but at the same time also consulting the event organizers who are signing up on Sponsor My Event, consulting also sponsors to make their sponsorship hopefully awesome. So that's what I'm doing.
I love it. What so that's great background on everyone. The next kind of question is, we're talking about sponsors. Where do we find them? Where's the best place besides SponsorMyEvent.com? Where's the best place to go and find?
You name it.
Courtney, give us some insight on where do you kind of start, right? I mean, you got your inbound leads just like anything else, right? We all love an inbound, hey, I need help with this. But when you're going to target somebody, where's the best place to start?
I think for us, a lot of times we look at our existing clients and subscribers, folks that are already doing business with us in other ways. With Marketing Profs, we have a platform where we do have clients that are advertising with us through other means, and it's a nice segue to say, well, hey, you should be in our marketing forum or B2B marketing forum. Another thing we do is we sometimes look at competitive events that are in our industry and kind of see who's sponsoring those events that are quite similar to ours. You know, we're offering similar content, if not better, and you know, try to get those folks, you know, to see the value in spending their dollars with us as well. So those
Do you do much outreach? I mean, do you go to people and say, hey, we want, you know, we think you would strategically line up with us, or is it a lot more, like you said, looking at what's already there?
We do. You know, our sales team is pretty aggressive in that regard. You know, whether it's you know, outreach that they're doing through you know, their own sort of you know, lead opportunities, or just going to other events and having conversations with people. You know, we do, as you said, we have kind of an inbound strategy as well, where folks will just sort of we'll get inquiries that are generated, and we sort of farm those out to the sales team. But certainly there is, you know, some aggressive outreach that has to happen. With our event, we've been around for 10 years now, so we have kind of this challenge of, okay, how do we reinvent ourselves and get sponsors to see the value in being here and getting new people in? We have a lot of repeat sponsors, which is fantastic, but we always want to up the ante and get new folks in. So really making our event the differentiator so that those sponsors will want to be there, so that it's an easy sell, hopefully, for our team.
Agree. Jackie, any insights, you know, best places to find sponsors?
Well, obviously, if you're working with organizations that have some stakeholders or boards, you know, you can always ask them, because it's easier to have a warm lead than a cold lead. So that's always good. What you don't want to get into is having too many people selling sponsorships. If you are working with boards and stuff like that, it gets just way too hinky, and you know, everybody's selling something different. So you don't want to go down that road. So that's why I kind of make it that they have to bring those people to me if they have a lead. But I do ask, you know, who do you know in your sphere of influence that, you know, might be interested in marketing with this? On the flip side of that, sometimes it's just a cold, you know, going down, looking in my market, seeing, you know, just like Courtney said, seeing who's sponsoring what, or thinking, you know, I'm very aware of this company. I don't know if they sponsor, and getting into their website and doing some research, finding out what their hot buttons are, finding out who the contact is, and picking up the phone and, you know, asking for their time and see if you can pitch this. Sometimes, you know, it's a waste of my time. Sometimes it's not. At the very least, you know, you kind of get some new people thinking about how to use those marketing dollars, how to use those advertising dollars in a different way than what they're normally, you know, the status quo is for them. Obviously, you know, you have to educate them quite a bit when you are dealing with people that really don't sponsor naturally, you know, as big companies, because they sometimes have a tendency to see it as a donation or a charitable contribution, which it's not. It's purely an activation of a marketing product. So, you know, there is a little bit of building those relationships and making sure that they're comfortable with you. Right now I'm dealing with some first-time events, so that's even harder because I'm dealing with first-time events and also, you know, new sponsors. And obviously we have in our backyard the GoDaddies and your Discount Tires and, you know, those big properties here, but, you know, they don't sponsor everything, so you have to kind of be creative and find out what would be a good link for this and why. A perfect example of this is I'm actually producing my own festival. I don't want to go into too many details, but I needed a sweet tea. And it just so happens somebody mentioned to me, well, you know, China Mist just came out with a brand new sweet tea, and that opened the door just because someone gave me a little tip that the sweet tea is only in the restaurants. It's not, you know, consumer based yet. So as far as retail, so that was like, wow, okay, that was like a huge tip for me, and got to sit down and actually have a meeting with them. So.
So it sounds like it's got to start. It's got to start from the core organizing, right? From the planner themselves to draw out who do you know already? Where can we get the ball started? Because I participated more on somebody trying to buy, you know, our time. Like, oh, would you sponsor? We sponsor. And I'm like, who else is sponsoring? You know, who else is on the list? Who am I going to be next to in the booth? And if there's nobody there, it's like, I'm going to be the only guy. Like, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of traffic, right? When it's like, oh, well, we're going to have, you know, this company there too. It's like, okay, give some traction. So from what I'm hearing, it sounds like it's got to start from the core organization to say, who in your Rolodex can we call that would be interested to be in front of this audience? You know, we like MPI, we go to MPI, like, how can we participate? What can we do? Like, we want to be there, you know, and obviously we're a nice inbound lead, but it starts with the core of where it starts. And Courtney mentioned, what are your competitors' events, right? If you sponsored there, I know you're a candidate to sponsor here. We're doing a lot of the same stuff. So some good insight. And Peter, I know I'm holding off for you because this is like your passion, man. Is where do you find sponsorship? So Meg, what are some ways, some places where we can look?
Yeah, so I work more on the corporate and association world, the events, and in corporate a lot with technology companies. And what you find is that they have a core number of sponsors, and so looking at competitive events makes sense for me because they want to sponsor in other areas. So I look at competitive events. The other interesting, two other places I look is geographically. So as I mentioned earlier, I used to work for MPI. Where were you, by the way, when I was looking for sponsors? And one of the things that we did, if you've been to the MPI conference in the summer, is years ago we were going to Atlanta and we went to Purina and started a puppy cuddling sponsorship at the conference. And that was all due to the fact that the conference was going to Atlanta, and we were looking for home-based type of sponsors. And so that has gone on now for, I think we're going on like 7-8 years, where Purina continues to sponsor, even though it's not in Atlanta anymore. So geographically works for me as well. And then there's also, again, I'm B2B world, but looking at what B2C is doing as well always gives me some great ideas.
I agree, and that'll lead great into the next question of, what's the most creative thing that you've done? We've gotten creative, like we will sponsor, audience interaction or water cooler conversation. You can do it a ton of different ways. But Peter, obviously this is your kind of bread and butter. Tell us a little bit about, how people can find event sponsorship.
Well, the first obvious answer would be, of course, on sponsormyevent.com, but that would be a little bit too easy. No, for sure. There are many different ways where you can find sponsors. First of all, I would simply say it depends on the size and kind of the event that you're organizing. If you're organizing, for example, a small local event, your first choice would be to shop around in your environment to see in your city, in your town where you're living, what kind of sponsors would be suitable. The first thing that you should do before you start even looking around for sponsors is clearly to profile what kind of people are going to attend your event, so that you have a clear view what kind of people are going to come and what kind of sponsors would be a great match. It doesn't make any sense just to bring a luxury shop if you have an event which is bringing in people who are definitely not clients of this luxury shop. So it's a waste of time simply to reach out to these people. So if you're organizing a smaller local event, just go to all the shop owners, store owners, company owners that you know around. Try to get introductions to the people if you don't know them yourself. Do really the whole blood, sweat, and tears tour, and just reach out to them. If you have an event which is bigger, then definitely also leverage all the contacts that you have. Use LinkedIn, use the social networks to get contacts, ask people for introductions to bigger companies. I'm pretty sure if you're doing a good job on this, you're going to have introductions, you're going to have open doors to speak to the right people in the bigger companies. Again, you need to have also, again, your profiling done, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense to contact the wrong people. And then also what I would recommend, collect your email addresses and use tools to make drip campaigns. Just send them out emails, try to get them on board. You need to send probably a lot of emails out just to have a little bit of return, but it's definitely worth doing it. But anyway, the most important thing is you need to have a correct sponsorship pitch, because if you don't have a sponsorship pitch that kills, then definitely you will not have any answers on it. So that's the first thing, that you really need to work very hard on it, because if you don't have that, then every effort that you're going to take is completely worthless.
It's so funny because you think sometimes these drip campaigns and these outreaches, it's like, am I just bothering people? And so often, like shows like this, where I'll ask, what are you going to? Oh, the PCMA this or the MPI that, and I'm like, I didn't even know that event was going on. I didn't even know that existed. Like, that's huge, right? And then that's our target audience. So it's like, what? So it's always about visibility. How much can you get out and just make sure that people know. Before we were published in Ann Hadley's Marketing Profs. What's the name of the specific blog?
If it was our blog is called Marketing Opinions.
I think
Actually, it was previously called the Daily Fix, I think, or it may have been on Anne's blog,
it was on
which is
Anne's blog. But
Anarchy.
yeah. So Anne, posts this thing for us about CrowdMics, which is this really simple marketing campaign. She picked it up and thought it was cool. She posted it, and I mean, we got a ton of hits, ton of leads, just ton of visibility, and people were like, "What? CrowdMics? That's cool." And it's the same thing with sponsorship, right? You feel like you're blasting people, like, "Oh man," but you don't know. This could be the ideal, perfect, if you're profiling them right, like Peter said. This could be exactly where they want to spend their dollars. So transitioning to the next question, which I kind of want to hear, hopefully some interesting stuff. But what's the most creative idea or like weird thing that you've had to do to kind of get a sponsor across? Jackie, you've been in the industry for long enough. Is there some interesting thing that you had to do? Bring in like cows or something? I mean.
Cows, I know that would be cool though, wouldn't it? No, most of mine are pretty straightforward. I mean, obviously, you always have to get them to activate and to do something interesting because you don't want them just writing a check and throwing a logo on your site, or whatever, because that's, I mean, that's not a sponsorship. A sponsor should be involved, and statistically, whatever the sponsorship is, it's usually 2 to 1 that they're going to spend that much more to be activate into the event, and that's what you want. You want them to have some type of presence. You want them to have a game or anything, like that you can put together. I do have some really good ideas that I've been tracking. I have a great mentor up in Colorado, Bruce Early, and he's got some great stories. They actually had Kaiser Permanente go to Denver Comic-Con. And you're kind of wondering, why would an insurance company want to be with a Comic-Con? Well, basically those young people don't really use their insurance, so they're great clients, or whatever. So they wanted to tackle them, but how do you get an uptight, insurance company involved in a Comic-Con, when everybody's dressed up looking for fun stuff to do? So they very creatively, and Bruce can tell the story better, they created the Star Trek, and I'm not a sci-fi person, the Star Trek med bay, the doctor's thing or whatever. Yeah. They had the uniforms, they got the scanners, they got everything, and they lined up to get in and be scanned in the Star Trek thing. Kaiser Permanente spent, almost double what the sponsorship was, but then they asked questions to get the information that they wanted that were truly Star Trek questions. So I'm not a Star Trek person, but, it basically would, and that's how they got people to buy in and give them their information, which I thought was really great. I just saw another one, sometimes you kind of get these people that want to be involved, but you don't have any place to put them. There's really no asset or benefit for them for whatever reason. And I personally don't just sell the stage, or I don't just sell that. I sell a sponsorship, and then I give them an asset or a benefit. And sometimes you're like, well, this person isn't going to work for this particular, what we're doing or whatever asset that we have. And someone came up with a really great idea for a conference one time where somebody wanted to be involved, and he wanted to interact with the attendees. So they gave them are you ready for this? The official hugging sponsor. So their people actually stood as people came in and hugged the people as they came in. Now, first off, they're instantly interacting. They're welcoming people, so they have a role, and they're getting this great relationship built right off the bat, and that's exactly what that sponsor wanted. So there's some really creative ways to do stuff like that. I've done some other kind of creative stuff that just got a little bit more on the technical side. When I worked for Russo and Steele and that kind of stuff, we had some sponsors that came in, and we tried to do stuff so that we crossed them over into our different shows and that, but not as sexy or fun as the Kaiser Permanente or the Hugger sponsorship.
That is cool. That is good. That's a good story. You never know about those unless somebody shares them. I appreciate you sharing it. Courtney, any thought? I mean, what's the craziest package or sponsorship you came up with?
Oh, goodness. I think, like Jackie said, ours are pretty, straightforward and standard. I'm seeing a lot more now that people just want the opportunity to interact with the attendees. They really want to have that time to kind of showcase themselves in a non-salesy way. So we've been trying to promote some thought leadership ideas where sponsors can host roundtables in our exhibit hall during breakfast or lunch. They, have a topic that they're an expert in, and they literally sit there and kind of chat with people, about their sort of marketing pain points. Same thing with another concept we have called office hours with the experts. So much like office hours with your professor, you get to come and kind of chat with a sponsor that, again, knows what you're dealing with and can help you out in some sort of way. So I think those are popular for us right now, where sponsors are taking ownership of their sponsorship and wanting to say, hey, I'm not just a logo on a site, I actually can offer a benefit to you. But some of the fun stuff, we offer the opportunity to sponsor a fun run that we do. So it's a morning run with attendees for all the runners that want to get up early and take a run around the Boston area. Yeah, not me either. And then we also have a photo tour, which this year we have a social media company that's sponsoring that. So I'm actually very curious to see what they're going to come up with as part of that sponsorship. Last year, our sponsor that sponsored the photo tour brought everyone coffee and donut holes and stuff, and went on the tour with them and was they're a video company, and they were it was perfect for them with the whole photographic concept. So I think creative stuff like that is always fun. But again, really adding value in some way is ultimately what it comes down to for the sponsor.
And I think it's got to be a combination that it can't just disrupt the whole meeting. Like, now we've got a sponsor for this. It's got to be it's got to be along the lines. You typically see an event app sponsor or a registration sponsor or breakfast sponsor that still have the flow of the event, but letting them get a little bit more visibility. And if it's done right, it's not just a logo like welcome to breakfast, and it's like this logo. It's like welcome to breakfast, where you're getting served with somebody. A guy's got a tux on and like you're just in your street clothes, and they're like making it feel like it's a 5-star restaurant. That type of stuff. That's interesting. Meg, any thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I think the puppy cuddling was pretty good.
Pretty good. I've heard of that before.
The other creative thing that we're doing a lot is putting sponsors together to create a bigger experience. And I think probably one of the most successful we did, again, was with MPI. Caesars International Entertainment was looking to do something along with Encore AV and Hilton Hotels. Hilton is a partner of Caesars, so we put them all together, and they created the Big Deal, which is a poker tournament, funny money poker tournament that raised money for the MPI Foundation. So they got great exposure. It became a fun night, and it's been going on for like 8 years. So I think putting the sponsorship, so the Big Deal is at a Hilton every year, and Encore does the AV, and Caesars takes care of the gaming part of it. So it's really a really fun, creative way to put some sponsors together that want that bigger exposure, but maybe you don't have the opportunity to give every person that wants a big bang that opportunity. You can put them together. So yeah, that was fun. And then we did a social media once where we did I had a technology hub. We called it the Hive, and we had little squishy fun bees, and we made a social media game that extended past the event, where people who took pictures with the bee in different places around the world, could send their pictures in and be part of a drawing, and that was a great hit. And so it's just something to extend your presence a little further.
I think you're exactly right. I mean, your best customer is your best next sale. Your best sale is your current customers, right? It's going deeper, saying, hey, Encore, you guys are partnered with Hilton across all their locations. What if we bring Hilton in and have them create at some of these expo halls, which is in a way sponsorship, but at some of these, like I remember at Delta at Oracle Open World, they had a full mini cockpit to show you what first class felt like. It was amazing. You sit down, they're giving you the food, you lay down, you're like, I'll never fly first class, but this is cool. It's about building experiences. Peter, you kind of come from both. You come from where you used to buy sponsorship and sell it. I mean, what's kind of a crazy activation that you've done?
Well, activation that we have done, I would say I have seen a lot of things and I have proposed a lot of things. So one thing that really left me impressed was at a smaller event. Actually, it was a brewery who wanted to sponsor this event also, and they decided to make a competition. So far, nothing stunning. I mean, doing a competition, running a competition is nothing really revolutionary. So people had to type in their email address in order to get into the competition. And they decided we're not going to put a normal computer there simply, but we're going to do something which is related to our job, brewing beer. So they had beer cans, and they took a lot of beer cans, they assembled them, put them on a plate, and put contacts on top of the beer cans so that they transformed the beer cans into a computer keyboard. So actually the people who wanted to enter this competition and to enter their email address, they had to type their email address on the beer cans, which is of course something which is super fun because everybody wanted to first see what the heck are these beer cans doing there. Then second, everybody wanted to try to type on this beer can keyboard, of course. And so really a lot of people were entering their email addresses trying to do it. It was funny. People were taking picture of it, sharing it. So that's for me definitely something where I say it's a very good example of how you can transform the idea of having a competition into something really new and really compelling. Recently, I was speaking with an event organizer, and they were looking for some fresh ideas, and so I proposed them what they could do also. Why not hijacking their own event? So, I mean, I remember that quite often it happened that someone didn't want to pay the very high sponsorship fees, so they were sending in someone into the event who was completely disguised with a logo, for example. So they were hijacking, running around till where was just guided out from the security, but still they got all the visibility, and the sponsors who were paying a lot for it, they didn't get any visibility. So I proposed, why are you not going to do this? Propose this to your sponsor that they can hijack your event. It's going to be some fun thing. If you have a person who's managing well to do this, acting quite well, just running around making a little bit of mess, and then with a big tantrum just being let out by the security, that will give you a lot of attention also. So it was an idea. They were not sure if they were going to do it now, if they were going to do it for the event. The event is going to take place in December only, but at least something which is a little bit more disruptive and where they know this will give a lot of attention. So I think there are many things. If you're just creative enough, you can always find something which is related to the event and which is fun also, what people like. And I mean, making people laugh at an event, that's definitely also the key to get the attention of the people.
I agree. One of my good friends is Sean Duras, who's a big Snapchat. He's like a big famous guy on Snapchat. And it's interesting, the campaigns, you know, it's in a way sponsorship that these brands will come to him and say, you know, what do you, like Google came to him and said, you know, like, let's do something cool, let's do something crazy. And it was Google Maps where he, you know, did this, you know, mapped out thing and got to these gas stations, and there was somebody there that filled him up with gas for free, and then he went to the next place and ended up in Vegas. And you know, it's the same kind of concept. You have to be creative. You have to think of just a different way to engage and get people, you know, bought in. Before I go to the next question, I want to take one from the audience. We did have somebody, Chantel Thompson, jump on. So the question is, I'm considering a digital component to my job fair where people can use an app to apply with their digital profile instead of physical resumes. Do you think this would be exciting to a potential sponsor? So instead of handing at each booth my resume, I had to use some sort of, you know, app form of like, well, here's my resume, and you know, you flick it to them or whatever. Could you see a potential sponsor saying, yeah, well, you know, I'll get behind that? Any thoughts? I'll kind of direct this to everybody. What's kind of just your initial thoughts or feedback on that?
I think I need to know more information before I can say that. So I think it depends on, you know, who the attendees are, who the potential sponsors are, what the purposes are. It's kind of a hard one to answer without a little bit more info.
Yeah, I think the overall idea is, you know, how often do you sell sponsorship for an ad, right? Or I mean, an app where the sponsor comes in and says, we're going to sponsor, you know, this app that has all the agendas and everything. Do you sell that, Courtney? Do you guys use an app for the, you know, B2B? Is that something you would sell to a sponsor?
Potentially, yeah, we do actually. We use Double Dutch. Props to Double Dutch for our our event app. And you know, we've had sponsors for the app in the past. It's a tough sponsorship though, you know, because you're trying to sort of, again, in this digital world, I think now that's why it's probably not as enticing. You really have to do some creative things to get people's attention. We do have pretty high app engagement. We put pretty much everything related to our event in the app. So the agenda, any sort of, concurrent sessions that are going on, networking events, breaks, you can sign up for things. We have our sponsors listed or attendees listed. Our app is really the place to be. So there is quite a bit of engagement there. I think, as Meg said, if for the question that came in, if there's, some context there, if there's a good reason to have that as a sponsorship, then it could certainly be viable. We definitely have seen our sponsors do some interesting things within the app, aside from just sponsoring the entire thing as well. We've also had actually a Wi-Fi sponsorship, which I find kind of interesting because I think as a sponsor, they like the fact that people are, typing in their company name every single time they log in. So it's like just over and over again, the repetition of that. So I think if you get creative with it, it could certainly work.
Well, and I'll have to agree with Meg. I kind of need a little bit more information as to what the strategy that would be of that. But what I instantly came to mind is, okay, who would want that data? As far as and what do they want to capture from that? So the first thing that popped into my head would be like a recruiting company. They would obviously want to get in front of these corporations that are hiring, and then of course they would also like to be, with these people that they could place if they don't get this other job. So I don't know how that app would work, but if that would be, the way to get yourself and use that, to leverage, and then also to capture whatever information that they opt into capturing. I would think that would be a partnership. That makes sense on both sides to me, and it would make sense to put the money there.
I think Peter made a good point earlier before, not to interrupt Peter, but he made a point that, a banner, right? You used to just put up a banner, like it's not trackable. You can't, people, that's just paying literally for just visibility. I think now sponsors from just your insights, that just this show of the last 15 minutes or 45 minutes, is that there has to be value behind it. It's more than just a brand recognition. It is an activation. It is an actual experience in some way. And so I think Jackie said, if it provides enough value to some sponsor to get that, resume, and they can keep the data for later, then of course they will, right? If, Meg has, an MPI event, and that's a huge audience for me, it's the ROI is there. So not to interrupt your thought, Peter, but it made sense that it's not just a banner anymore. We're not just putting, even like TV commercials to me are useless. Nobody watches commercials. I'd rather engage with an influencer, right? Use somebody, to push your brand into their, even if it's just 100,000 followers, those people will watch and listen rather than the 5 million people that every time a commercial comes on, it's the first thing I do is change the channel or go somewhere else. So
the funny thing is that the human brain is surprisingly efficient when it comes to filtering out information that you don't want to see. You might keep them in the subconscious, of course, so that's possible, and it might be also that you're going to recognize a brand after it, even if you don't know it willingly, or if you don't want to see it willingly. But still, I mean, just hanging a banner, it doesn't work anymore. You need to have something which is really interacting with the people, and that's why also Chantel's question, and by the way, hello Chantel, she's a very good client of us, so just happy that she signed up also for this webinar. I think it's a good idea to have something which is more interactive, but it definitely depends, and there I agree with all of you. We would need to have a little bit more information how you want to set up these things, because if you do it in the right way, then this can bring a lot of interactions. But if it's something which is too pushy also at the same time, collecting information, then people will reject it, and it will go right away in the wrong direction, because people will consider it as being nosy, and that's something which is kind of the worst case also. So very good idea, but you have to be very careful by setting it up and by planning it. If you do it well, like for example with the beer can keyboard, that's a perfect example, which was not nosy. People wanted to participate, then it works very well.
I completely agree. When you said the beer can thing, that immediately thought of the toy the toy stores that have the massive keyboard, where
Yeah,
you jump on
Exactly.
and play the music. It's so engaging. You're just like, of course you want to do it. You're like, I want to go do that. And it draws you in. And so I think it's more about how do you draw people in rather than my brand.
Right.
It's come enjoy this experience. And if at the end of it, you walk away and say, oh, this is the greatest brand ever, great. But just typing in, like, you're like, it's so funny that people want to be the Wi-Fi sponsors. Like, typing in, whatever, sponsor my event. It's like, that's great, but I'd rather it be something, so, you walk outside and cuddle puppies, and it's awesome. It's something you'll always remember. So kind of transitioning into the next, go ahead, Mick.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's interesting that mobile app sponsorship has gone through quite an evolution. So when mobile apps first started coming out, everybody wanted to buy a banner because you could click through and you could measure the click-throughs as opposed to print advertising. So that was like a big wow, right? And then it was push notifications, and everyone's pushing notifications out everywhere, and then everyone's saying, wait, no one wants, as to Peter's point, no one wants to be spoken to, no one wants to be pushed to, and now it's all about engagement, right? And getting people engaged and having them do something fun and interesting. And it's just fun to kind of watch in a very short amount of time what the evolution of mobile sponsorship has become.
I think also, if I might jump in simply on it, we should keep an eye on everything which is augmented reality. I mean,
Right,
everybody, I don't need even to mention, but there is one game which is super famous for the moment with some monsters in it, so everybody knows it. I mean, even if you're definitely not interested in such a game, I would still keep this in mind because that gives a good example of how also in the future a certain gamification of event sponsorship can take place, because everybody is running around with a smartphone or with other devices, and having augmented reality integrated into the sponsorships so that you have something like a scavenger hunt made half virtual at an event. That's something which is definitely very compelling as well, and I would see something like this also as one of the future sponsorships which are going to come. So definitely keep this in mind also, and follow the evolution. It's not yet at the point where it could be implemented so easily, but for bigger events, definitely it will be.
Right.
Yep.
I was really impressed. I have to say, I was very impressed. The Phoenix Zoo here in town apparently is a hotbed for the Pokemon, and they got very smart. They started on social media talking about that, and then they opened up earlier for the summer, because it's hot here, whatever, so that people would come and play Pokemon. Smart, not a sponsorship related, but from a marketing point of view, I was like, they got it, they figured it out, and I thought that was very, very sharp of them.
Well, and Nintendo's smart because they're now starting to talk about, okay, we're going to let you sponsor gyms or sponsor, lures or whatever, and that is obviously a huge part that'll move in. And then I think another really brilliant, we worked with an event this year, Dig South, which is in Charlotte, South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina, and they were allowing their sponsors to purchase the geofilters in Snapchat. So they would help them build it, and then they would give them the parameters of the location, and then that would be the geofilter, right? And so you'd slide through in your Snapchat, and you take the picture, and that geofilter would be sponsored or branded, right? So there's a lot of different ways. I think augmented reality is going to be huge. Obviously, we have beacons that help give ROI specific to sponsorship involvement. And I think the overarching topic today that I really took out of this is build experiences, right? And make sure those brands are telling a story. And if they want to tell their story in their way, then that's fine. Like the experience of that Jackie was explaining, where what was the brand? Kaiser, where they brought in and did this whole, Star Trek hospital thing. For the Star Trek people, getting a picture inside of that thing was massive. That was huge, right? And it was just a little tiny touch point for them. And the virality on social media was huge. So I think it's about not selling so much just old classic sponsorship. We want your money and we'll give you some exposure. It's we want you to provide value to us, and we're going to provide this value to you, right? And here's how we can work together, and you might get somebody that's like, oh, we just want to set up a booth and we're going to hand out this, and it's like, you're not a fit. Like that's not going to work for us. We're actually looking for something a lot more intriguing and interesting to our audience. And so I think you've really got to kind of navigate that part of it.
Well, I truly believe that every sponsor should strive to extend the event also beyond the event itself, providing valuable content beyond the event itself, being on a landing page, on a lead page, for example, just simply to provide something where the event attendee can simply say, this is something which gives me this added value. And that's so easily done. I mean, take a sports event, for example. A fitness studio chain could sponsor this event by saying, okay, we're going to set up a page with dedicated training sessions, for example, for free that you can download, something like this, a warm-up for a marathon or these things. There are many ideas where you can extend really the event and not only just getting the visibility, but providing this added value through the extension of the event.
Right. I agree. And that's just there. Yeah, they've got to sell that engagement, right? They've got to do it right. So the last two questions, we're running out of time. This hour flies by. It's my favorite hour. So everybody be thinking, and I'll pick on somebody, but what are some tips for planners in 2016? It's going to be one question, and then do you have any favorite tools or resources? So Meg, what's a favorite tip, or what's one tip for planners in 2016? Kind of generic, doesn't have to just be sponsorship, just kind of in general.
Yeah, I think it's really important for planners to really look at their sponsorship and create a strategic plan. And I think to Peter's point earlier, it's important for them to look at, stop looking at sponsorship from a tactical standpoint and looking at more consultative, and really getting to know their sponsors, what their sponsors' objectives and goals are, and really trying to match it. And also treat your sponsors like true advisors and partners. There's so much information you can get from them if you have those open conversations. But also, I'm big on the surprise and delight factor with sponsorship. And, we've done sponsorship where, on setup day, we've brought down an ice cream cart for everyone and just, thank your sponsors. It's a lot of money normally, and it's a lot of effort. And, you want them to be happy because at the end of the day, everything, what you do, what event planners do, and what sponsorship does or brand partners do is to drive value for an attendee. So that's my tip.
I love it. Peter?
I would say keep definitely an eye on the evolution of the technology. It's not only event tech, but in general technology like augmented reality. So it's not very easy to keep up with all the new developments, but it's super important also to understand what is driving the young generation today, because those trends which are set today by the millennials is going to be something which is going to be mainstream also very soon for older people as well. And if you know what's going on, then you can orient your sponsorship both from the sponsor side but also from the event organizer side towards these directions and come up with really outstanding and disruptive ideas which will make your sponsorship definitely world-class.
Love it. Technology. Jackie?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with the technology, and we haven't even got into the Z generation that's coming that will do everything on their phones, no laptops, anything, so that's just crazy. I definitely think that when it comes to sponsors, much like Meg said, you really need to make sure that you're engaging them. A lot of times sponsors want to talk to other sponsors, and they'll make their own really great activations together, so sometimes it's a matter of getting them at the same table, as long as they're not competitors, but even competitors can sometimes work together. And also, if you get somebody that's not quite interested for this year or whatever, invite them to your event. Have a VIP experience for them, even though they're not a sponsor, so they can, engage in this event, so that they will be on the line for next year. So they can see where somebody else did something really creative with their sponsorship. So they can see the event firsthand. It's really different to be part of an event when you're actually at it and experiencing it than seeing it on a proposal or on a deck. So.
I love that. I love that. Courtney, any insights?
I agree, definitely.
One tip I tip the planners.
Yeah, I think for planners, really being creative and flexible. I think we come up with a sponsor prospectus that has all this great stuff on paper that is part of a sponsorship package, but we're willing to work with a sponsor that's willing to work with us on something customized. So I think you really, as a sponsor, as an event planner, need to be willing to do that because not everything is cookie cutter, and you want to stand out from the crowd, and you might have a sponsor that wants to go above and beyond what's put out there, and as an event planner you can't be so rigid that you wouldn't be willing to allow them to do that. So working together, having this collaborative approach, I think is the way to go.
I want to piggyback on that. The days of silver, bronze, gold are gone, and as a matter of fact, when I sit down with my client, the first thing I ask them to do is pull all pricing and packages off their website, because I do want to customize all that stuff, because the same package for one sponsorship is not going to be the same. They're not going to want the same things, and basically if you put those packages out there with a price tag on them, they're always going to go for the one that's the least expensive, where I could be upselling if I created an activation or a benefit or an asset for them that would make more sense for them. But I need to know that. And then from a planner's point of view, because I am an event planner, you need to know what your real estate is. So look around your event. It's not just staging and fencing and VIP stuff or whatever. There's so many different ways. And take your sponsorship salesperson out there, because they will find creative things like, let's put a corral of puppies right here where there's this dead space, and sell that off. And we'll get very creative like that. But we have to walk the event with you. We need to see those logistics, and we need to see where the real estate is that we can sell, because trust me, we'll sell it.
Absolutely.
We had an event, local event in Arizona that was totally random. I can't even remember what it was. Small, definitely smaller, type organization, but they had this, parking, valet parking, free valet parking. That was part of the experience. And after, you came back out and got your car, there was, this little, I can't even remember what it was, sticker or something, right, in your car, and it's like, not only did I get a free car, a free parking, and they took care of it, and I felt like this star, but I also just, this little tiny touch point, and it's those kind of just creative thoughts and things that you've got to always do. All right, last one is just a resource for planners, maybe somewhere where you always go to read your news. We've had anywhere from a full-face scuba mask somebody wanted to share with the audience, down to, we use Slack for all of our communication. What's one tool that you're this resource that you could share with everybody? Peter, what's a resource that you're high on right now?
Well, definitely one resource. I believe that today having an internet site, a website for event planners or event organizers for their event is something which is absolutely necessary, even more than it was 5 years, 6 years ago. And there is one software that I would recommend. It's called Wix, which is a website generator where you can build your websites. You have free mode, you have a paid mode, your own domain, not domain. So it's very comfortable to use. And I don't think that there is any excuse for any event planner or event organizer who doesn't come up with an internet site for his internet site that he can use really for leveraging all the communication around. The second tool, sorry, I'm going for a second tool as well. Second great tool is also, if you want to capture contacts, just use something like lead pages, for example, where you can very easily generate some lead pages, some landing pages where you can provide forums where people can sign up for things. Just interact also prior to your event with your audience and give them the possibility to sign for things and just to interact simply with you. So Wix and lead pages, for example, these are two great tools that I would use to build up the foundation for a whole communication strategy on the internet.
I love it. Meg? What's your resource?
Yeah, I work with a company called Opus Agency, and they have an amazing customer activation portal. So the customer can go in and see all their dates, their due dates. They can upload all of their logos and anything they need that is part of the activation, and it's a really easy, very customer friendly tool. Opus Agency.
I love it. Courtney.
Well, mine aren't super exciting, but my kind of go-tos are Dropbox and Evernote have saved my life on more than one occasion. So, just the flexibility of those tools and the ability to collaborate are key. So anything that allows you to do that is important.
Those are just classic grinds. I just love them. Those are just good ones. Jackie, what's a resource you can share?
I love what Courtney says. I also use OneNote in Google, basically like an electronic binder, so that's awesome and great to share. There's also some really great organizations. Sometimes they're, way above some of the scope of what we're doing, but IEG is a great sponsorship organization, MPI, and they have some resources there, but there's also International Festival Events Association, IFEA, and they do webinars on sponsorships. So those are some really great resources. And I also, I'm not the most high-tech person in the whole world, but I just engage as best as I can those people that do know, and having those little millennials at your event, blogging, taking pictures or whatever, and hashtagging is one of the best things you can do. And if it's at $10, $15 an hour, I'd do it in a heartbeat because it's worth it.
I agree. Well, we're going to wrap up the show. That has been the hour. We respect your time. Really appreciate you coming on. We're here every Wednesday. Next week we've got some great guests as well. One of them actually being the co-founder of LinkedIn, which would be kind of interesting as things have bubbled up recently and a lot going on. That he left a while ago, but he left and has started an event in the event industry to start a company. So we'll have them on next week. Really great show. Appreciate you guys. You're event icons to us, and keep helping the industry and keep getting better. So we appreciate it, and we'll catch you next week.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.